Welcome back to List Stuff. Today. We're looking at the ultimate double-edged sword, human confidence. It's the thing that gets us to the moon, helps us build skyscrapers, and somehow convinces us that wearing socks with sandals is a bold fashion choice. But there's a thin line between I can do this and I am a god who can ignore the laws of thermodynamics. When we cross that line, things tend to explode, sink, or melt. Today, we're counting down the list of disasters that were made worse by human confidence. First up, the big one. The one everyone knows, but for the wrong reasons. The Titanic? Most people think the Titanic sank because of an iceberg. And sure, the iceberg played a significant role. Ice and steel are generally a bad mix, but the disaster wasn't just a navigation error. It was a management decision fueled by pure, unadulterated ego. Captain Edward Smith and the White Star Line executives weren't just trying to cross the Atlantic. They were trying to break a record. They wanted to prove that their unsinkable ship could maintain top speed, even in a known ice field. They had received 6 separate warnings about ice that day. 6, that's 5 more than you need to realize. You should probably slow down. But slowed speed meant a late arrival. A late arrival meant bad PR. And they were so confident in the ship's double-bottomed hull and watertight compartments that the warnings were treated like annoying pop-up ads. They didn't even bother to give the lookouts binoculars. Why? Because when you're that confident, you don't need to see the iceberg. You expect the iceberg to see you and move out of the way. Next, let's travel to 1871 for the Great Chicago Fire. The popular legend is that Mrs. O'Leary's cow kicked over a lantern. Whether or not the cow was innocent, the real culprit was urban planning arrogance. In the 19th century, Chicago was growing faster than a teenager on a growth spurt. To keep up, they built the city out of, well, basically kindling. The sidewalks were wood. The streets were paved with wooden blocks. The houses were wood. Even the fireproof buildings had wooden roofs. The city's planners were told this was a disaster waiting to happen. Their response, it's fine, we have a lake. When a long drought hit, the city turned into a giant matchbox. When the fire finally started, the wind blew it across those beautiful wooden sidewalks, like a literal fuse. Moving into the nuclear age, we have the Chernobyl disaster of 1986. This wasn't just a mechanical failure, it was a safety override culture. The night of the explosion, the operators were conducting a safety test. Irony is a cruel mistress, isn't it? To perform the test, the engineers had to disable the automatic shutdown systems. It's the equivalent of taking the batteries out of your smoke detector so you can practice what to do when the smoke detector goes off. The engineers in the control room were so confident in their knowledge of the RBMK reactor that they ignored every blinking red light and computerized warning. They genuinely believed that the laws of physics were more like suggestions. When the reactor became unstable, they didn't stop. They pushed forward, convinced they could handle the beast. By the time they tried to hit the emergency stop button, the core was already turning into a small sun. Confidence is great, but physics doesn't care about your resume. Speaking of safety being a suggestion, let's talk about the Space Shuttle Columbia in 2003. During launch, a piece of foam insulation broke off the fuel tank and hit the left wing. This wasn't a secret. NASA saw it happen on camera. But here's the thing. Foam strikes had happened on previous missions. It was what engineers call normalization of deviance. Basically, they saw a problem so many times without it causing a disaster that they started to believe the problem wasn't actually a problem. It's like hearing a weird rattling noise in your car for 3 years and concluding that the noise is just part of the engine's personality. Lower-level engineers begged for satellite photos to check the damage. NASA management, confident that it's just foam, denied the request. They figured even if there was damage, there was nothing they could do, so why worry the astronauts? That overconfidence led to 7 lives being lost during re-entry because a piece of harmless foam had punched a hole in the heat shield. Then there's the Deepwater Horizon oil spill in 2010. This is a masterclass in risk normalization. The drilling project was behind schedule and millions of dollars over budget. BP and its contractors started cutting corners because they were confident that their technology could compensate for any minor lapses in protocol. They skipped a critical cement bond log test that would have told them the well was unsealed correctly. Why skip it? Because it cost $128,000 and they were confident the cement was fine. They ignored kicks or pressure spikes from the well, assuming the sensors were just glitchy. It was a culture of, it'll be fine, we've done this 1,000 times. Right up until the moment the well blew. The rig exploded, and 4.9 million barrels of oil ended up in the Gulf of Mexico. Turns out, that $128,000 test would have been a pretty good investment compared to the $65 billion in cleanup costs. Finally, we have the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster in 2011. Fukushima is often blamed on a once-in-a-lifetime tsunami, But the real disaster was the hubris of the planning committee. Decades before the wave hit, scientists had warned that a 15-meter tsunami was a statistical certainty in that region. The engineers at TEPCO looked at the data and decided a 6-meter seawall was enough. Why? Because a 15-meter wall was expensive and, in their professional opinion, unlikely. They were so confident in their low-probability models that they placed the backup diesel generators, the things meant to keep the cooling pumps running during an emergency in the basement. When the wave hit, it didn't just go over the wall. It flooded the basements, knocked out the generators, and led to a triple meltdown. It wasn't an unforeseeable act of God. It was a we know better than the data act of man. The common thread in all these stories, it's rarely a lack of knowledge that kills. It's the belief that we have enough knowledge to stop being careful. Every one of these disasters could have been mitigated or even avoided if someone had simply said, maybe we aren't as smart as we think we are. History tells us that the unsinkable always sinks, the fireproof always burns, and the harmless foam is never actually harmless. Thanks for watching this episode of List Of. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the moments where human ego met reality, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps the channel move up in the algorithm, though we're not overconfident about it. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss another list. Have a disaster story fueled by confidence that we missed? Drop it in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.